What's going on, guys? I'm still on my phone, so hopefully you guys will be okay with checking this out through a little bit shittier quality video, but I'm gonna try to explain everything the best I can. I want to tell you guys about a little trade that I decided to dip my toes in today. It was just something that I kind of spotted here over the weekend, and I've been watching Rivian come off the lows, and it's had a pretty decent rally. From the low of 15.35, and then so far it's hit a high of $22. But something that's pretty interesting to me is that we have basically had this downtrending falling wedge or downtrending channel, and it broke up to the upside, and it's been basically trending up for quite some time now, since we hit a low on January 19th. And although it's rallied up a pretty good amount, it kind of seems to me like it is forming an uptrend. Now, right now is a very hard time for most traders, and for me in particular, because we can see stocks rallying. Really big tech is rallying, and there's many stocks that have been significantly higher since the lows that we put in, say, in October or earlier than that. But with SPY and NASDAQ and Dow Jones all like at the tops of their channels or their ranges, and we've been faked out so many times where they come up to significant levels like they're at now, and they just ended up dropping all the way back to the bottoms. Now, one thing to say is that this time, since we've been on this beautiful rally in SPX and at NASDAQ and Dow Jones, it's actually been pulling up a lot of tech from their lows this time around. Like Meta, obviously, we saw have an insane rally after earnings, and even Apple, with the shitty earnings that it had, it ended up pulling down pretty hard down to the 140s. I mean, that still was a pretty decent support area, and then it just rallied to 157 the next day anyway. So I mean, there's definitely some a case for some FOMO to be in right now in the markets, and other things that we're seeing. But that's the things that really have been making me not want to take any type of trades. Really, I've played a few things, and I've been doing pretty well with some trades, but I'm just in and out kind of on different moves up. Now, anyway, that's going to get me into what's going on here. So Rivian, obviously, all the EVs are going to follow, what Tesla's doing, right? And then the rest of the market as well. But one thing I like to see here with Rivian is that, even looking at like a daily time frame here, yeah, you could make a case that like, oh, this is just a rising channel or a rising, whatever, and it could be that could be the case. But what do you do when you have uptrends starting? When you're on a bearish trajectory, and you're making lower lows and higher lows, lower lows, higher lows each time, you want to sell the rallies and then ride the slope down, and so on and so forth. But now that we're potentially, it's not confirmed, guaranteed, right? This is tough to come in here emotionally and be like, this is it, we're at the bottom, let's start loading the boat. Obviously I can't tell you the future, but I can see that there is an uptrend starting here, and that's something that I decided to nibble a little bit here. So I was kind of looking at a couple potential possibilities. The first thought that I had was I was drawing a trend line, kind of like this originally. This was my first thought, was from this low, and then we bounced here, so maybe we would bounce here at this 1939 or 1950 area. But then later on, I ended up saying, well, let me just take another look at this, maybe pull some fibs and see what we have going. So even if we took a retracement from this 2204 high, pulled it to the bottom, then we could see that, there's a fib, or there's a way to potentially buy this dip safely and buy some fib levels or fib supports. And what did we end up doing was we ended up pulling back to the 0.5 fib, almost actually to the T. So that's very good to see. That that the buyers did step in. Sorry, I just moved it around, but it was 1871 was the 0.5 fib. And that's where we ended up bouncing. And we bought up pretty dang good. So that was my first initial thought, like I said, was that trending line. Then the second thought was, let's go off of, you know, now that we've made a bounce, which I ended up buying close to the 0.5 fib. I bought a little bit on the way down. Like I put a little bit in at 1950. Sorry. Yeah, was it 1950. I bought a tiny bit just to have a little position. Then I bought most of mine at 1920s. And then I bought more at like, no, I just kind of bought the dip on this. This was just my idea was, let's buy the dip. And then I ended up, you know, eventually putting the fibs in and being like, all right, this makes sense that it's like kind of bouncing here. So now that we've had this nice bounce off of this, we can clearly see now that we have 1, 2, and 3 touch points on this potential rising trend. So in an uptrend, you end up each time that you come down, you make a higher low, and each time you come up, you make a higher high. So we haven't made the higher high yet, but this is going to be the next thing we're going to want to watch and see. Now, obviously, this thing could potentially, you know, reject right here where we're at and then roll back down and then make a double bottom and then go up, which is fine as well. And if we do that, still got to watch that 1871 because that's that 0.5 fib. Maybe we don't just have one touch bounce on it. I also have this 1913 area in here. That's just kind of off of this body here. We can see we had a body that came up, the wick shot up, and then the body closed below, and then we sold off, which eventually turned into a rally anyway. So, you know, most likely the 1871 will be more important. But another thing that I kind of had drawn in here before was just kind of like this, you know, potential of this just being a falling channel that eventually we could break out from, whether it's drawn like this, kind of like that, and then we found support on the uptrend and we made a nice bounce. And then if you look to the 15-minute, the end of the day rally, it actually pushed us through this potential previous resistance. I mean, we could line up the wicks a little bit better, which would be something like that. And then we would say, if this thing decides to have a pullback here tomorrow, 1967, you'd want to see hold. If we went lower, we could look at like, you know, 1959, 1960, which would be kind of these bodies here. You can see when we came up last time, we failed to close candles above, and that ended up dropping us down. So that could be something to watch. But, you know, tomorrow to me is going to be a pretty big, significant day. And then overall, to like really confirm anything, you probably have to see, you know, some support up in this range here, because off of those candle bodies, you can see here, we tried to close above. We couldn't get above. We had a fake out, and then we just dropped all the way back down. So $20.12 to as high as $20.20 would be an area to reclaim as support. And then we can say, okay, this thing is potentially ready to go up and make a new high. So anyway, this is what I've been doing, is kind of buying this dip here. And I'm trying to see if this is going to be something that will be worth, you know, making a play on. So I am in with like 50 shares. So also I'm watching Tesla, as Tesla is chopping around at the same damn resistance level right here at roughly, you know, 197.50 to 197.40 area, right in this area, with a wick high of 99. So it does need to get it through that 200 eventually. Whether or not this is going to end up being a nice consolidation that does push us higher, that's going to obviously help in Rivian's case. But something also to look at is kind of like, you know, Tesla, it had that nice uptrend starting where you had, you know, your initial bottom, and then you had your uptrend kind of start, which I already drew it in there right there. But you kind of had your uptrend start where you had your test, your third test, and then you started in, you know, your higher high, your higher low, higher high, so on and so forth. And then it had a beautiful run. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for Rivian. You could probably look at the same with like Lucid and other stocks that are EV stocks. But obviously, if Tesla decides to break down, this was kind of what I was looking at for Lucid, which ended up, you know, taking longer to play out, and now kind of looking like a flat support here where it's at now, which it did end up holding, which is nice to see. So now we kind of know with Lucid that this 1111 area is going to be a strong support. And if you lose it, then you know that there might be room for further downside, unless this ends up turning into like a, a big, falling wedge like this. But that will be, for now, we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that we have some support here, and that'll be something to watch. And then we have this potential downtrending resistance here, which it did tap at the end of the day, and it's also coinciding with the other wick highs here. And this high here is roughly about 63, 64. We'll call it 1165. And if this can break through and actually get a nice breakout and then start lifting above some of this previous sideways consolidation, maybe get a close somewhere and like maybe find some support somewhere above this $12 range, this will be a good signal for Lucid as well. But if you wanted to get an earlier buy, we'd have to see a breakout of this downtrending resistance and maybe some nice consolidation and then a nice pull through. But anyway, these are a few things that I'm kind of doing because, some things have just rallied so hard. Like I was talking about earlier, like Meta, for instance. Obviously, this thing has ripped insane. So who's going to come in here right now and start buying Meta? Probably not. Maybe profits are being taken, or, maybe this thing does have room to continue higher and go all the way up to 236. It's possible. It's strong as hell. But that being said, I'm not going to come in and start buying the thing at 190 bucks. So I'm starting to kind of look back at some things that could potentially have room to run still and start putting my money there. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So whether or not this ends up turning out to be, a bad idea, I guess we'll find out. But I did buy this dip, and now I'm going to just let it rip and see what happens. And then if we end up getting a higher high, and then we end up making a nice pullback, I'm going to be looking for potentially the trend support and maybe some fibs, and look to buy some fibs if I decide to add to my position. But I got a pretty good position, and now I'm in on this market if it does want to continue higher. Obviously, it's hard as hell to say, like, this thing is ready to rally, like SPY's ready to rally to, wherever it's trying to go. If it's trying to come up here to 430 and potentially break this downtrending market, because we've had, we started with this high, then we made a low, we made a lower high, then we made a lower low, lower high, lower low, and then we made a lower high, and then we made a higher low, and now we're making potentially, as of right now, we're making a higher high. So do we have to come back down here and make a higher low again at 403 maybe? Or do we just continue up here? That's where I'm kind of at, but I'm watching this personally right now. I'm watching this uptrending support that we have. And so far with this uptrending support, I drew in earlier and I posted it on my trading view. Was when it was right here and everything was looking red and kind of bearish looking, I was like, it looks like it's going to make a nice bounce off this uptrending support, and boom, that's what we did. Had a little wick lower, so I put this trend line in at 407.59, and then we ripped back up, but now we're not making a higher high yet. So we kind of need to make that higher high here on SPY, because if we don't, then this might end up looking like, oh shit, we're putting in a lower high now. Does that mean we have to put in a lower low? And then we're going to start a, potentially a downtrending area until we find some support below. Then overall, maybe make that higher low that we were talking about on the bigger time frames. That'll still be something that we have to see, but it depends if SPY can break up here, make this higher high, and maybe confirm 416, 417 as new support, or 413 as new support. That wouldn't be too bad to see, because we kind of failed that before with, we ended up breaking that and then coming down. We rounded up. Are we going to flip this to support and then be able to potentially rocket to, up into those areas? I mean, obviously it's hard to tell, which is why it's tough to come in here and start buying stocks, but that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm just going to watch this trade and see how it plays out. So, maybe it's better to be late to the party and wait and see what happens versus coming in and putting a bunch of money in stocks and then they pull the rug on you, they rug pull you, and then everything comes crashing down, and then, whatever. I don't know. but I'll have my stops in place. You know, I have my risk to reward. That's where it comes in. So with Rivian, what we were talking about, just to say, I mean, I'll probably stop loss it somewhere below that, you know, that low of the 1870s. Like, we start breaking 1870s, going down to the next fib down. Now I'm going to say, all right, well, this is wrong. This isn't the idea that I was looking for. And then I'll have to find it. So hopefully this all makes sense, and I hope you guys appreciate this analysis. This is kind of where I'm at right now, just looking at the charts, looking at everything, and I am jumping around, looking through different charts and see what's going on with, you know, NASDAQ, what's going on with you know, the Dow Jones, and, you know, Tesla. You know, these are all things that I'm watching. Obviously, we can see the beautiful uptrend that NASDAQ has now put in here since it's broken through this channel, but we've done it before in the past. But right now it does look like it potentially could be moving higher, whether or not this turns into the resistance here first, right? This could be setting up for a nice bull flag like that, or maybe it just broke out today and it's like that. Obviously, we won't know until we break up higher. But, you know, these are things that I'm watching on this, you know, smaller time frames as well as the larger time frames. But this is a beautiful double bottom. Like, it's hard to ignore this right now. As much as I want to be a bear and say, whoa, we're reaching this peak here where I put this red arrow, this 12.9. Are we just going to reject like we did here, reject like we did here? And that's possible, we do. And then we have to come back and retest this 12,000 and then confirm this W pattern neckline, and then chop here, and then we go. I mean, that's a possibility as well. But these are things that I'm watching. But for now, the trend is moving higher, and it's looking pretty damn good for now. So we'll see how everything goes. But while this is occurring, I'm gonna be, you know, looking for some stocks to potentially buy on some dips, not on huge rallies. I mean, yes, this is a huge rally, but these one red candle here, one red candle here, one red candle here, that's what's been going on with the NASDAQ, and that's what it usually does when you look back at, like, bull markets for SPY and NASDAQ and everything like that. Like these rallies here, look at these rallies. You have 2 days of red, then you rally, 2 days of red, then you rally, 2 days of red, then you rally. You know, you're sitting here waiting, oh, this thing's going to crash, this thing's going to crash, this thing's going to crash. Eventually you get some pullbacks, but you know what I'm saying? So is this the start of that? It's possible. There's no guarantees. Nobody really knows. It's really hard to say, especially with everything that's been going on and previous price action that happened in this range here. You know, we're breaking into the same range here on SPY and NASDAQ and Dow Jones, where we just chopped around and we just dropped all the way down. But this looks a little bit different this time to me. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm just as skeptical as probably you guys are, but I'm just starting to dip my toes in some things now. So I'm going to just play it safe, just like you guys should, and always keep your eyes on the market and what's going on. But it's possible, very possible, that maybe something is brewing. Maybe something's brewing in the bigger markets here. I don't know for sure. This is my Dow Jones chart. Same thing, like chopped around, lower, 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 and then we broke out from this downtrending resistance, just like SPY and the NASDAQ did, and now we've just been chopping around in the 0.618 fib, right? Using the 0.702 retracement as resistance, which we need to break above that 34,500, 34,460. But it kind of looks like potential, you know, bull pennant or big symmetrical triangle that we just been kind of just chopping around. We can't really close any candles above this 34,100 area. But then on the hourly, we're starting to push a body through that white trend line that I drew. We kind of did that before, and then we faked out and dropped all the way down. So maybe it'll be a big day this week for Dow Jones to see if anything's going to happen. But overall, it wants to close a candle body above this 34,460 to 34,400 to 34,500 area. And, you know, maybe this thing's ready to start rallying to some bigger levels. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to be watching these things. And then lastly, TNX. This is something I just learned. You know, if you guys already knew this, more power to you. TNX, this thing here is the 10-year yields. It's just something I was looking into because I was curious about it. I'm not too familiar, but I'm familiar enough from what I looked at that as this is rising, this is showing that people don't want their money to be in like safe havens and like, you know, as this thing starts to get more bullish with the 10-year yields, that means that people are ready to put their money to high risk or take their money from safety perspective and put it into something that can give them higher returns. So as this thing is potentially pushing the downtrending resistance here of this very nice looking falling wedge or big freaking bull flag or something, if this thing starts to decide that it wants to break out, does that mean that people are actually doing exactly that, putting their money into some higher risk stuff? Obviously, it's showing that when it comes to all these stocks rallying right now, but is this going to be a fake out and then just reject and go all the way back down like it did last time? It's possible, but we are starting to see some nice push through. So that's just something small that I'm looking at. Obviously, the DXY is important because the US dollar, if people are putting their money into the US dollar, then what does that mean? They're not putting their money into stocks, right? And ever since, this is something I put on my post. Now, I didn't follow this as well as I damn should have because I saw this thing break down and I talked about my target of 113.211 and we hit 114. And then if we broke this, we could go into a downtrend, which we did. That probably signaled the bottom for the stocks and Bitcoin. And I called the breakout for Bitcoin, but I didn't like load the boat on stocks right here. That probably would have been smart. I don't really know. I didn't like put them side to side and said, hey, when this thing broke, did the stock market? I don't know how perfectly that coincides with each other. But I did have this charting out the whole time. We played around with the 0.5 fib on the DXY. We had a fake dip below, and then we rallied up. But everyone's getting bullish on the DXY. Well, maybe not everybody, but people are getting a little nervous. But look at what it did. It made a lower high, a lower low, lower high, lower low. Are we going to make a lower high and then go back and make a lower low? That's possible. That's something to watch right now because this is stalling the market probably. But if this thing can break lower, that could give a signal for Bitcoin and the markets to potentially push forward even more. And then we'll go over Bitcoin too. I know I'm going through a lot of stuff right now, but whatever. Bitcoin, hopefully you guys are interested in all this stuff. This is just all the stuff that I do. Like I look through all these things. I was looking for a little bit of a breakdown on Bitcoin, believe it or not. I know this chart looks a little bit sloppy. I have a lot of stuff going on here. I just posted about a potential breakdown, but that was just because we started wicking below this 22.6. So I was like, oof, maybe we are going to get a breakdown, right? But I was like, only if we break through 22.600 and close below his resistance. And I probably posted it right here, right? Right when we wicked on it, I was like, uh-oh. And guess what? We rallied. And we had this downtrending resistance, which I ended up flipping my idea right around here. I made a post in TradingView. I mean, if you guys want to check me in case you don't follow me. BTC right here. Boom. This is where I was saying it's time to get a pump. And we did get a pump. We broke through. And why did I know that? Because I had this downtrending resistance, or this downtrending channel that we were bouncing in. And then we ended up having this nice little triple bottom you can see here. But what I was looking at, because this trend line doesn't look right now because I must have changed it, but I had it drawn like this because it was off of this high, this wick here, this wick here that dropped us down. Then we got support, we got resistance again. And then I zoomed in and I was like, whoa, we broke up, we trended sideways, we came down. No, I didn't call it here because this ended up having a rally and then it broke back in, but I called it here and I was like, we're back testing this looks like a flag, we're ready to rip. And then we ended up ripping. Now we got rejection at the 23,003s whatever, and then 340, and then we dumped back down. So I was like, just like the stocks did too when Jay Powell was speaking. But then we ended up buying all the way back up. So I've been kind of a little bit on the bearish side on BTC, but that's because like it's just chopping around up here, but we do have a lot of good, nice looking moving averages. And now we're starting to get a bounce after, having some bearish divergence on the daily time frame. But what I was kind of looking at was this 50 weekly and the 200 weekly. And we're not quite there, but we did test up to it. But what happens when this crosses down on on this. Does that push BTC down? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm not a moving average expert, but I am a little concerned on what's going on here in the resistance above for Bitcoin being at that, 24,700. So that's something that I'm kind of watching as we're trading here. I know my charts look ugly. And I think I'm going to leave you guys with that, even though I have one more stock that I currently actually put a position in today. And I'll just go over it really quickly, but I got to go. This is SiLVERGATE. Despite the moving averages, I'm kind of looking at whether or not this idea is wrong. Obviously, it's a high-risk position, but I did put a buy-in at 17.25. I did post about it on TradingView. I'm kind of looking at this based off of these bodies as a potential ascending triangle, a weekly breakout, and then a back test of 17.25 to confirm it. If you look down on the daily, we did have 2 taps roughly of that area. If you look on the hourly, we kind of tested that area quite a few times, but now we have resistance at 1848 to 1852. And then if you look at the EMAs on the hourly, it's right there at 1852. We tapped it at the end of the day. Now we're probably going to have a sell-off for tomorrow. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. So I'm just kind of watching this one, but I did buy at 17.25 today, just kind of basing off of that idea there. And then if we put like a downtrending resistance on, some of these wicks here, I mean, you could even go off of those right there. And then I was kind of like, is this breaking out of this downtrending resistance? And then this is kind of the support. I don't know for sure if that's going to work out, but that's kind of what I was doing. If that's the case, then we come back and we back test $18 as support. Otherwise, we're going to come back down here to the 17.25 maybe. But we do have some EMA support if you care about that. 1787 and 1780. It might be better to buy, instead of buying up here, it might be better to buy the support if we can get it again. If we lose it, then obviously we're going to be down in the 1772 maybe, and then reject off of this and fail. I don't know. We have 100 EMA on the 15-minute, 1919. Maybe that's where we head to first. But we have to reclaim that 100 because we are below it now. Maybe that's what we're going to do tomorrow, try to reclaim that. Or maybe we just sell off and this whole idea is junked. I don't know. I'll have my stop in place, so I'll get stopped out if I'm wrong. But yeah, that's basically where I'm at. I know it's a long-ass video. If you guys made it to the end, comment down below and let me know you guys made it to the end so I didn't just talk to myself this whole time. And if you appreciate any of this, leave a like and subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you learned anything, I hope you did. I don't know if you did, but I'd appreciate you letting me know. Yeah, peace.